I don't think anybody could have predicted that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
No specific threat involving really a domestic operation involving what happened, obviously, with cities, airliner, and so on.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
My name is Peabody. I suppose you know yours. Actually, it's a time machine. I call it a Wayback. We just set it, turn it on, open the door, and there we are.
Back to 1995. It was codenamed Operation Bojinka, a terrorist plot to use commercial planes to attack U.S. targets.
Ramzi Youssef, the bomb maker responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, had fled to the Philippines, where police discovered his bomb factory. Youssef again escaped, but his accomplice was arrested and spilled the chilling plot.
Operation Bojinka, a plan to blow up multiple airliners over the Pacific, was heavily reported, but Thompson noted most journalists failed to mention the second aspect of the plot. Only CNN International dug deeper into this story.
In confidential documents from the Philippines obtained by CNN, the plan was clear. He will board any American commercial aircraft, control its cockpit, and dive it at the CIA headquarters. Other buildings targeted the Pentagon and the World Trade Center. And the FBI, using the Philippine documents, did check the 4 flight schools named there, but found no evidence of any other planned terror attacks.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
You should simply insult the intelligence of the average American.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Are getting raped by this administration.
August 1997. The cover of FEMA's Emergency Response to Terrorism depicts the World Trade Center in crosshairs.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that these people would take an airplane and slam it into the World Trade Center, take another one and slam it into the Pentagon, that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
The Statue of Liberty is crying. She's been raped and disheveled.
Only NBC reported a stunning confession by a man allegedly trained by bin Laden.
It was over a year before 9/11, a Pakistani-British man told the FBI an incredible tale, that he'd been trained by followers of Osama bin Laden to hijack airplanes, and he confessed he was now in America to carry out an attack.
Khan was recruited into Al-Qaeda at a British mosque, then flown to Lahore, Pakistan for hijack training in a Mach 767 cockpit before being sent to America, where he was told he would hijack a plane from JFK and fly it into a building.
I told him before the 9/11, about more than a year, we hijacking in America Airline.
Khan claims he got cold feet. Instead of meeting his contact, he slipped away, gambled away all his money, and in fear turned himself in and confessed.
I've been to Pakistan. I know about this hijacking, something going on.
NBC News has learned Khan passed not 1, but 2 polygraphs. A former FBI official says Newark agents believed him, but word came from headquarters, quote, return him to London and forget about it.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
It's nothing other than a government-sanctioned rape.
Secondo USA Today, dal 1999.
According to USA Today, in 1999, the American Air Force conducted special exercises 4 times per year in which the hijacking of civil aeroplanes by terrorists was simulated. The selected targets were the Twin Towers and the Pentagon.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
People in New York, you're being raped by your government.
1999. NORAD begins conducting exercises in which hijacked airliners are flown into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that these people would take an airplane and slam it into the World Trade Center, take another one and slam it into the Pentagon, that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at another example of where, despite the conventional wisdom, there were people in the United States who actually were preparing to defend against the kind of attacks which occurred here on 9/11. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD for short, has been defending the skies over the U.S. and Canada for almost 50 years, 46 to be precise. USA Today reports that in the 2 years before the attacks on September the 11th, NORAD conducted exercises using hijacked airliners as weapons. And one target was the World Trade Center.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that these people would take an airplane and slam it into the World Trade Center, take another one and slam it into the Pentagon, that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
U.S. military planners did envision and practice those very scenarios. As reported by USA Today, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, conducted exercises with fighter jets, simulating hijacked planes flown into the World Trade Center.
No specific threat involving really domestic operation involving what happened, obviously, with cities, airliner, and so.
October 24th, 2000. The Pentagon conducts the first of 2 training exercises called Moscow, which simulate a Boeing 757 crashing into the building. Charles Burlingame, an ex-Navy F-4 pilot who worked in the Pentagon for 17 years, participates in an earlier version of this exercise in 1989 before retiring to take a job at American Airlines, where, 12 years later, his Boeing 757 allegedly crashes into the Pentagon.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
April 2001. NORAD plans an exercise in which a plane is flown into the Pentagon, but is rejected as too unrealistic.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that these people would take an airplane and slam it into the World Trade Center, take another one and slam it into the Pentagon, that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
The use of computer with the Bojinka plan in 1996 in the Philippines. It talked about taking hijacked planes and running them into the Pentagon, the White House, the Capitol, the CIA headquarters, and the Twin Towers. The Pentagon staged an exercise a year before, in October of 2000, at the site with the Arlington County Fire Department to simulate a plane running into the Pentagon and how the fire responders would get there and what they would do. So this was not outside the box or, you know, out in the blue. They not only expected it, they prepared for it.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
June 2000. The Department of Justice releases a terrorism manual with the World Trade Center in crosshairs.
Hello again, Peabody here. All through with your spaghetti, Sherman?
Couldn't take another bite, Mr. Peabody.
Good, then we're off to Italy.
March. Italian intelligence gave information to the U.S. based on their wiretap of an al-Qaeda cell in Milan. The LA Times and the Washington Post said the wiretaps warned of brothers going to the United States and a massive strike involving aircraft.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
We received these audio tapes that were obtained 3 months before September 11, 2001, from a different field office, Iranian informant who'd been on FBI's payroll for 10 years, since about 1991, 1992, in April 2001. And in April 2001, this informant told the FBI that on a separate issue, he had obtained information about Al-Qaeda, bin Laden, issuing an attack in the United States that would involve 5 major cities, and it will involve airplanes, and that the attack was going to take place within the next few months. They took the information, they found it important, they filled out forms, they came back to the headquarters, and then they filed it. They gave it to the superiors, right? Nothing happened. 2 months later, they met with the same informant again. And the informant asked, he said, did you do something with that information I gave you, because it came from really reliable sources? And the agent said, yes, we gave it to our superiors. Well, nothing happened. Nobody followed up on this.
supposedly a CNN reporter found Osama bin Laden, took a television camera crew with him, went into Osama bin Laden's hideout, interviewed him and his top leadership, and he came out and told everybody, within 3 weeks, Osama bin Laden is going to attack the United States and Israel. Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? You see, because the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. Some doofus jerk-off reporter with a camera crew waltzes right into his hideout and interviews him. And I'm telling you, be prepared for a major attack.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
July 2001, according to 60 Minutes, Egyptian intelligence received a report that 20 al-Qaeda had slipped into the U.S. and 4 of them had trained on Cessnas.
Now, to the Egyptians, pilots of small planes didn't sound terribly alarming. But they passed on the message to the CIA anyway, fully expecting Washington to request more information. The request never came.
Attorney General John Ashcroft begins flying on chartered jets for the remainder of his term due to a threat assessment by the FBI.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
I'm joined by retired CIA officer and intelligence analyst, Ray McGovern. Ray, thank you so much for joining me.
Most welcome.
So you are a former CIA officer. You've served under multiple administrations, I think 7. And this all brings me back to the New York Times article today talking about, the infamous PDB briefing to Condoleezza Rice. Bin Laden determined to strike within the U.S. and it had so much controversy. But what's really interesting, I wanted to pull up a quote from this article, Ray. It says, in other words, the August 6th document, for all the controversy it provoked, is not nearly as shocking as the briefs that came before it. And it goes on to say, operatives connected to bin Laden, one reported on June 29th, expected the planned near-term attacks to have dramatic consequences, including major casualties. On July 1st, the brief stated that the operation had been delayed but will soon occur, yet the White House failed to take significant action.
Golly, Mr. Peabody, this is terrible. There must be some mistake.
Why? Why, oh why did the U.S., or did the White House rather, fail to take appropriate action in the face of all these threats?
They were told by the so-called neocon advisors not to pay attention to the CIA, that they didn't have the same priorities. They're all Clinton people. And so what we're really concerned about was SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, anti-ballistic missiles. What we're excited about was energy,
What a pisser.
August. Britain warned 3 times of an al-Qaeda attack in the U.S., the final warning specifying multiple airplane hijackings. According to Britain's Sunday Herald, the warning was passed on to President Bush a short time later.
No specific threat involving really domestic operation involving what happened, obviously, with cities, airliners.
Thompson compiled stories about 14 different nations that had warned the U.S. prior to 9/11.
You could have one story that comes out on the front page and another story that comes out on page B12. And what I found is that many times the story that comes out on B12 is more important than the story that comes out on the front page.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
The Federal Aviation Administration admitted it had decided not to order a security alert at the nation's airports despite being warned a week before September 11th.
Holy shit. One threat assessment is well known to have reached President Bush directly. It was known as the Presidential Daily Briefing, or PDB, of August 6th.
And it was a revelation that the White House had no intention of making public, and officials spent the entire day in full damage control.
All of this reporting about hijacking was about traditional hijacking. You take a plane, people were worried they might blow one up.
President Bush was told in August that Osama bin Laden
might be planning an attack involving the hijacking of U.S. aircraft.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
I'd like to ask you about the August 6th PDB.
Sure.
You mentioned it.
2 years later, President Bush responded to questions about what led him to request the August 6th briefing.
Yeah. Ed, I asked for the briefing, and the reason I did is because there had been a lot of threat intelligence from overseas. And so part of it had to do with the Genoa G8 conference that I was going to attend.
Smart as a whip, isn't he?
8 of the world's most powerful leaders gathered here to discuss global problems. And yet, the threat of violence means they're having to keep the world at bay.
I hate a liar.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I won't.
August. According to Moroccan and French newspapers, an intelligence agent reported that bin Laden's men were preparing large-scale operations in New York in the summer or fall of 2001. The agent was then called to the U.S. to report this information directly.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
Nobody in our government, at least. I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
No specific threat involving really domestic operation involving what happened, obviously, with cities, airliner, so.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of.
Oh, she's a gold digger. Hey, old town that digs on me.